Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I think you can hear me. I'm gonna go with yes. Another week. This time holidays are coming up. Happy holidays, everybody. Hope you're well. So it's cloudy here, but it's warmish, unseasonably warmish, but that's where we are. So, okay, we are recording. We are live. Right. Okay. So I thought maybe I would be able to do this in 2 weeks. I think I've got something else I want to share as well. I feel like there's a lot going on. Maybe just because I'm reading the news. But anyway, I think I'm going to read. I'm not going to finish all of this week. And I want to also, I'm going to share a short something else along with this. So, okay, here we are. Without further ado, I'm going to carry on from where I was. He's explaining his process. This is Adam Moss is explaining his process of learning to paint, trying to paint. He's uncomfortable with it, uncertain of his ability to do it, doesn't know the skills, isn't coming out right. And yet, I'm going to start with the very end of what I read. And yet, though it sounds horrible, it wasn't entirely. It was like a bad affair. I loved it even as it tortured me. And at least it consumed me. In spite of my troubles, I kept painting. Though I pretend otherwise, I really was ambitious. I wanted to be good. And when I was at my most exasperated, I found myself asking the same question I had asked as an editor. How does anybody make art? Only now, my professional interest had become personal. The problems I am describing were ones of editorial self-scrutiny run amok, as if I had an overeager immune system that was sabotaging me. Editing is deliberating, choosing a word or a thought, dismissing or advancing. It comes up often in this book as a way to describe artistic decision-making. And in my journalism career, editing had served me well. My temperament was well suited to it. I always had trouble writing. I was too self-conscious. You can see a pattern. And I couldn't bear working alone. But I thrived in a group and in response. I could corral ideas and sharpen them. And I enjoyed thinking of the magazine itself as a canvas, playing with new ways to use it. In the various magazines I ran, we were forever trying to invent original story forms. And those attempts got even more interesting. We could invent whole new magazines on the fly as the digital age kept offering up new toys to work with. But the emphasis here is on the we. There was safety in numbers. It was as part of a community that I was most successful. But that was in the past. Now I was on my own, wanting to be a painter. And I was vain enough to hope that I could even maybe make something interesting. Because why else do it? I didn't dare express that hope out loud because serious art making seemed so far out of reach. I was staring at a canvas in a room all by myself and getting not nowhere, but not far enough. I took to YouTube tutorials, but realized it wasn't practical help I was seeking. In fact, the inevitably contradictory guidance often confused me. And anyway, I figured skills would just come with more practice. I went to see a whole lot of art. And I read a lot about painting. In one book, a monograph about the figurative artist Eric Fischl, 1970 through 2007, I came across this passage in which he described the making of one of his more famous paintings called Bad Boy. It's in the PDF is there, the reproduction, and there it is again. It's like, ooh, Bad Boy. Okay, here's what Fischl had to say about it. Bad Boy was an extremely meaningful painting for me to paint, not only because of what it ultimately came to mean to my career, but also because of how I got to it. I was so lost in that picture that I actually had no idea what I was looking for. I started out just wanting to paint a bowl of fruit. I went from painting that bowl of fruit to constructing the room that the fruit could be in, to finding who might be in that room and what time of day it was. Who I first thought was in the room wasn't there. People came and went. The 12-year-old boy stealing money from the purse started out as an infant, lying next to the woman, then became a 5-year-old sitting on the edge of the bed. He literally grew up in that room. I just kept following it, trying things that didn't work. I just painted things in and painted things out. Reading this account, I felt some of my torture starting to lift. I appreciated Fischl's willingness to allow me into his mind as he stumbled through the work. His struggling was comforting and illuminating. It gave me the beginnings of an idea. When artists speak, they generally focus on what their work means. They think up a spiel they can repeat over and over, and I guess it's what most people want to hear. I have listened to and even published countless words on artists' missions, their purposes, their projects. Some of it is interesting. A lot of times it's just gassy. In any case, I realize it's not what I want to know. My curiosity is earthbound. Where do they begin? And what do they do next? And when do they know they are finished? And more crucially, what do they do when they lose faith? Do they lose faith? In other words, how do artists think? As I considered my flailing artistic efforts, I realized I was begging for entrance into the artist's head. At least one big problem I was having, underlying all the others, is that I just couldn't see it, couldn't envision how it might work if it were working. That was why I'd noticed what I'd noticed on that Spain trip, at a moment when my frustrations were most acute and my hunt for creative entrails had become increasingly compulsive. This is a book about following associations and about how they cohere into something tangible. And in retrospect, this string, how my mind was looking to put something together before I was aware of it, was this book's genesis. If I could somehow make the process legible, I might find making art myself less intimidating and begin to make headway. And maybe what was true for me might be true for a reader. So, no meaning, no magic, just the work of it, the work of art. It goes on. I'm going to pause there. Maybe next week I'll finish it. There's a lot more. All right, I'm going to put a pause there. I want to share something else before the holidays. Okay, this is. Can I open this? Rebecca Solnit. I saw her post this morning, just now, on Facebook. I don't know why she's not Instagram. She closed that off. She is not on Instagram. Rebecca Solnit, Solnit. If you don't know her, she's a writer. She's a great writer. And she has wonderful things to say about the times we're in, about life. She's pretty great. And she has a book called Hope in the Dark, Untold Histories, Wild Possibilities. Third edition, with a new foreword and afterword by Rebecca Solnit. is actually from 2016. The post is from 2 days ago. It's on Facebook. I recommend it. So this is just, I'm just going to read a little bit in the very beginning. You know, we've had enough time on this thing. Okay, but grounds for hope. Your opponents would love you to believe that it's hopeless, that you have no power, that there's no reason to act, that you can't win. Hope is a gift you don't have to surrender, a power you don't have to throw away. And though hope can be an act of defiance, defiance isn't enough reason to hope, but there are good reasons. I wrote this book in 2003 and early 2004 to make the case for hope. The text that follows is in some ways of its moment. It was written against the tremendous despair at the height of the Bush administration's powers and the outset of the war in Iraq. That moment passed long ago, but despair, defeatism, cynicism, and the amnesia and assumptions from which they often arise have not dispersed, even as the most wildly, unimaginably magnificent things came to pass. There is a lot of evidence for the defense. Coming back to the text more than a dozen tumultuous years later, I believe its premises hold up. Maybe I'll just pause. It goes on. It's worth reading. All right. Hope in the dark. Yeah. So I'm gonna go paint. I've got stuff to do. I hope you're all making stuff, painting and drawing, or other things. Happy holidays. Be well. Be in touch. I don't know. Am I gonna see you all before the new year? Yeah. I'll be back before the new year. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.